I've made beginner guides for both Framer as well as WebFlow in the past, and today we are actually going to compare each of these tools side by side so that by the end of this video you actually know which one you should go for. And by the way, I'm not actually sponsored by any of these tools, I'm just going to state my personal recommendations depending on my own experience. However, if you want to support my channel for completely free, you can use the referral links down below, and you're even going to get the special discounts if you are going to use them, so make sure to do that if you want to. Now, I think both Framer as well as WebFlow are actually great tools, however they are for different kind of use cases. Now, WebFlow really is a little bit more tech orientated, and you're going to have to learn the basic features of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and by the way we are going to dive into the editors later on. But basically with WebFlow you will have to learn basic HTML, whereas with Framer it kind of more feels like a design editor really. So Framer actually works pretty intuitive and is super easy and super nice to get started if you're a beginner and if you haven't designed any websites on your own, because their editor really is, in my opinion, way better than the one on WebFlow. Now that doesn't mean that the WebFlow editor necessarily is bad, however I personally just think that the Framer editor is more intuitive and more beginner friendly. And this is how the dashboards are going to look like. So right here we can just create ourselves a new site, and by the way both WebFlow as well as Framer actually have tons of great templates. Some of them are free, however most of them are going to be paid. So if you want to actually invest a little bit of money and if you want to save you some time, you will have that options for both tools. But either way I will just create a new site right here for WebFlow as well as for Framer right here. Now this is how the editor is going to look like. However, there is actually one feature which I would like to touch on, which is importing from Figma. Now Framer actually allows you to automatically import all of your designs from Figma so that you can actually publish it as a website, which is something which is basically super useful in my opinion. But either way, let's get started with the editor. So the Framer editor is pretty self-explanatory. You can just insert all of the different elements, and by then selecting these elements you will have all of the settings on the right. And the same basically goes for the WebFlow editor. Right here on the left you can add a new element, so I will just add a new section, and then I'm going to add a navbar inside of this section. Let's quickly find the navbar right here. And now we can once again customize our navbar on the right. So as I've already mentioned, with WebFlow you will have to learn the basic HTML settings. So for example, you will have to learn how classes work, how spacing and padding work, how flex boxes work, and so on. Now this isn't really complicated, but still the WebFlow learning curve is a little bit more steeper than the one on Framer. On Framer it is really just drag and drop, so you can just drag all sorts of different elements from the left. So let's for example say that we can just drag this element onto our website, and then we can also add a second element. So let's add this featured section right here. So as you can see with Framer it's just super simple and super self-explanatory, whereas with WebFlow you will have to learn some things before you can actually get started building your first website. So now once again, if you want to learn any of these tools, I've already made beginner tutorials for them, so no worries, it isn't complicated at all. However, still the learning curve for WebFlow is a little bit more steeper. Now both Framer as well as WebFlow do offer content management systems, so you can actually build up stuff like blog on WebFlow as well as Framer, which is also super important to mention. So if you want to do that, you will have that option on both tools. We can also add animations to our website. So on Framer we would just have to head over to our layers panel, and then once again this is basically pretty similar to any kind of design software out there like Figma or Photoshop. You would just have to select the layer that you want to add an animation to. So for example, I will just select this feature section right here, and then I will just head over to effects on the right, and then we can basically select any of these animations. So I will just select the appear trigger, so this is going to be the trigger for our animation, and then I will select the preset to, let's just say, fade in, and we can also actually set the fade in transition. So I will add a little bit more stiffness, a little bit more damping I guess, also a little bit of a delay, And as you can see, now we will get a preview of our animation right here, and we can also publish our site. We're going to have a simple slide-in animation. Now obviously you would have to tweak this to your likings. I'm just going to show you the basic settings right now. Now as for Webflow, if we would want to add an animation, so I will just quickly add I guess just a heading text so that we can add an animation to it. It is actually a little bit more complicated. We would have to head over to the interactions right here, and then we will have to actually put in all of the actions. We will have to put in the trigger, we will have to set the appear and disappear, we will also have to set the emphasis and so on. Now this isn't necessarily a bad thing, don't get me wrong. It is actually super useful to build up pretty advanced animations where you basically don't have that option on Framer. On Framer you will only get basic animations. However, as a beginner it is going to be a little bit overwhelming to get started with, but once you've learned everything you will have way more options than on Framer. Framer actually also offers you to build up new sites using AI, so you can just start from the Framer AI. So I will just type in something like make me a website where the visitor should subscribe to the YouTube channel Krause Tutorials. By the way, make sure to do that. Then just click on start, and now Framer is going to generate our site. Now this isn't going to be 100% perfect every time. However, I think this is still great to give you guys an idea on what you could use for your website and basically to enhance your creativity, okay? So this is also a feature which is pretty nice. On the other hand, Webflow actually also offers a feature which I really like, which Framer doesn't offer, which is code export. So within Webflow you can actually export all of your sites as code, so basically just as HTML, CSS as well as JavaScript, to then host it on your own, which is a feature which Framer currently lacks, so this is super useful in my opinion. Now when it comes to the pricing, both Framer as well as Webflow do offer pretty competitive pricing models. As you can see, just as for this video, I will go for the yearly option as this is going to be cheaper. Now both Framer as well as Webflow are going to offer you 4 different tiers, one of them being a free tier, and generally within the pricing models, both of these are priced fairly similarly. As you can see, the cheapest is going to be $14 for Webflow, on Framer $5, 5 euros actually, but it's basically the same. However, for the cheapest plan on Webflow, you're also going to get more features, so this kind of balances the things out a bit. Now, generally, the pricing is basically the same, because on Framer, you will actually pay a little bit more less. However, you're on Webflow, generally, you're going to get more features for the cheaper plans. So basically, for the conclusion, in my opinion, both of these tools are great. If you want to build a little bit more advanced sites, I would actually recommend you to go with Webflow. However, if you want to just create a good looking site on your own, don't want to spend as much time and don't want to have a steep learning curve, I would actually recommend you to go with Framer. Either way, if you want to learn any of these tools, you can do so by using my tutorials right here. Thank you for watching, and make sure to use the link down below if you want to go for any of these tools.